is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, and today I am very excited to announce we are finally going to be discussing the Alien Hybrid program. I've been promising this video for quite a while now, and I'm finally done with enough of the research that I can bring you at least some of the information that I've uncovered. This topic is one of my absolute favorites. It's one of the most interesting to me, and I really hope that you will receive it in the same way I did and just get totally engulfed in the information. It is absolutely insane, especially if you're a believer, as I am. So here it is, the reality of extraterrestrial and human hybrids. So what I'm starting with today is some research by a renowned psychologist and expert on the alien hybrid program, or the alien hybrid theory, depending on what you want to believe, and her name is Barbara Lamb. Barbara Lamb has been a psychotherapist for 45 years. She's a lecturer, she's an author. Some of her books include Crop Circles, Alien Experiences, and my favorite title in the world, Meet the Hybrids. While Barbara was licensed in 1976, it wasn't actually until 1991 when people started coming up to her and asking her questions about some unusual experiences that they had been having. Because of some of the lectures she had given, the books she had written, and her very extensive research into the subject, abductees and experiencers were coming out of the woodwork right around 1991 to start asking questions about not only what had happened to them, but why it had happened. And Barbara was the person to turn to. She was the expert on the subject, and still is, actually. Some of the main experiences and common themes people were coming to Barbara about were things like strange beings suddenly appearing in people's rooms, their bedrooms, disc-shaped crafts appearing to them, and doing these things in the broad daylight too. It wasn't like these crafts were coming or these beings were appearing in the middle of the night. This was happening to them in broad daylight. When the crafts would follow these people in their vehicles, the story was always the same. Eventually, the car's motor or engine would completely stop, and these same beings, which would sometimes appear to them in their bedroom and in other random places at seemingly random times, would exit the crafts and approach them here too, like randomly wherever they were. So imagine driving down the road and your car stops and suddenly a craft that you've noticed has been following you hovers above you and beings get out. Even if the car doors in these vehicles were locked, somehow telepathically the beings would make the doors unlock. The person would then be taken away from anywhere from a day to a couple of days, a few hours, and in some instances, though extremely rare, the person would be kept even longer than this, weeks at a time in some cases months. These experiences are what came to be known today as abductions. Barbara claims that throughout her career, she has regressed upwards of 2,000 of these abductee experiencers. She claims that the term alien abduction is a new term and that these experiences were probably happening just throughout millennia, basically since the beginning of mankind, the beginning of humankind. A typical abduction experience will see the person being encountered by 1 to 3 beings and being put into a state of non-awareness and or paralyzation. So they don't know what's going on and they can't move any muscle but their eyes. Not all of these encounters, but most of them occur while the individual is asleep in their own homes, in their own beds. If the abductee isn't alone in the bed, the other person that they're sharing the bed with is usually switched off, which means they aren't able to be woken up regardless of whatever may be going on around them. So you can be screaming and you can't be flailing or anything, but the person's not going to wake up. They're going to be completely in a state of sleep where they cannot be reached consciously. They're just going to be totally unaware. Very quickly after the initial paralyzing of the individual, they are levitated off the bed and sometimes even moved through walls to be brought to the nearby craft. The craft will then fly off, almost always at an abnormally high rate of speed. And this is so probably they're not noticed by bystanders or witnesses, right? Could you imagine you're standing outside or, vaping out your window like I do in the middle of the night and you see someone being abducted by an alien? Now, there is at least one case that I know of that I'm currently researching where the woman was abducted in plain sight in a very busy and populated city, even though it was the middle of the night, in front of many, many witnesses, most of whom have come forward. But we'll save that for another time. My point in saying that is that while the aliens obviously don't want to be seen, they really don't care if they are or not. It's not going to stop them. If for whatever reason the person that's in bed with the abductee does wake up, the aliens don't care. It's not going to put a foil in their plans. They're going to continue on anyway. They have their own agenda, and that agenda, I believe, is saving their own race. While the things I just relayed to you happen in most cases, obviously every encounter in abduction is different. But once aboard the ship, there have been so many different things reported as to what had happened to people, what had been done with them. Even if the same things had happened to an individual, their experiences are always going to be different. The variation on these reports are wild, to say the least. It seems that each different race or type or species of these beings have their own agenda when it comes to abducting humans. After the experience, after the aliens are done with whatever they're doing, the person is usually floated or flown back down to Earth and almost always return to the exact same spot from where they were abducted. I wonder, are these abduction encounters becoming more and more common in recent decades, or is it just easier for us to learn about them because of use of the internet, uploading footage of alleged UFOs or being able to tell about your experiences? I really don't know. All I know is that these days, these encounters are becoming more and more commonplace. Or at the very least, the person who was abducted is made to feel more comfortable and confident about coming forward. I think if it was like 1950s and you had a housewife saying she had been abducted, she would have probably been locked away in a mental asylum and probably lobotomized, right? Barbara stated that throughout her journey, she has gained so much knowledge and awareness of the cosmos and has just grown so much on a spiritual and intellectual level in having been able to be a part of these people's stories, just becoming a part of them by being their psychotherapist or their hypnotic regressionist. This is where, in my research, Barbara started explaining and talking about just a few of the many different alien races that are involved in this hybrid program, coming here to Earth and also going to other planets as well to visit certain people. It's not like they're only coming to Earth. As far as what Barbara claims, these aliens are going to all different planets. We're not exclusive. It depends on what they want. Depending on how you feel about the subject, I would say not everyone is special enough to have these experiences, but you could say some people are lucky enough not to have them, these visits from these extraterrestrial beings. But it's been reported that in the United States alone, 8 million people have received at least one visit from an alien life form at one point in their lifetime or another. And that's only the people who can remember, because as we'll see, a lot of these abductions, the memories kind of come back in pieces. The people don't remember everything or anything at all right away. That's a really high number if you think about the fact that I said in the United States alone. These experiences have been widely reported throughout the entire world. So imagine then how many individuals' lives have been directly or indirectly affected by these encounters. Let's talk about some of the accounts from people who claim to have actually been involved in and are still a part of these hybrid programs throughout the world, and also from people who claim to actually be hybrids themselves. One of the most bizarre yet fascinating cases of a person claiming to actually be a hybrid and believing that she went through one of these abduction experiences comes from a woman in Apache Junction, Arizona in the United States, and her name is Cynthia Crawford. Obviously not the model, because I know at least one person's going to say that. According to Cynthia, ever since her birth, there has been something inherently different about her. She was born a fraternal twin, but was missing the amniotic sac at her own birth. Believe it or not, this is actually one of the parameters for someone to be a hybrid, the missing of the amniotic sac and fluid in the womb. This is not a common occurrence. If you look it up, this is extremely rare for something like this to happen. It's even less common than on cow births, which I'm not sure how to pronounce that. and they're known to be magic as well. Our own Steve Stockton was a cow baby. So let's focus. Cynthia Crawford always felt she was different from other people her age as far back as she could remember. When she was born without the amniotic sac, the doctors told her mother they had no record of anything like that ever happening before, like ever. I must say, when trying to find info on it online, and admittedly, I only did like a cursory search just to kind of see if this were still true, if it was still uncommon, I couldn't even find anything about it from a Google search. I couldn't even find Cynthia's case. Cynthia had a lot of unnamed health problems throughout her life. All she really said was that she was sick all of the time. She was just ill, unhealthy, kind of like the air in this world didn't agree with her. And remember, she had a fraternal twin who did not have these health issues. She was much more sick and sickly than most other children her age, and this lasted throughout her entire childhood and teenage years as well. And still as an adult, she's really not in the best of overall health. One of the main and specific health problems Cynthia claims to have is unusually porous bones. It's alleged she had a plethora of psychic powers and had had nightmares also for as long as she can remember about being abducted by aliens and UFO crafts all around her and following her. It didn't take long or much research for Cynthia to draw the conclusion that these constantly recurring nightmares were actually fragments of memories repressed, purposely repressed, probably by the aliens who abducted her. So that's like what I was just talking about. A lot of people, the memories come back in fragments. It's not like you're flashed back into your bed after being abducted and you immediately remember. Some people do, but it's not the normal. All of these things that I just mentioned and much more actually are common denominators in hybrid people. When she was in her 30s, Cynthia finally came forward with what she felt was the truth about her heritage and her genes. The truth about her genetic makeup, if you will, and what she came to find out and report as absolute fact is almost unbelievable. Even to seasoned professionals in the UFO and paranormal communities and fields, her allegations are shocking and hard to believe, just like the other cases I'm going to be talking about. And it's really up to you if you believe in them or not. I believe in most of this. And if you don't, or if you do, be sure to leave a comment and let me know what you think, and let's discuss it. According to Cynthia, she is the product of an elaborate and top secret experiment which mixed human and alien DNA in the hopes of creating a hybrid, which is a mix of the two, alien and human. She claims there are two alien races who have contributed to her DNA. This is strange and unique in itself, as in most cases, it's human and one species of alien. So Cynthia is also special in that way, where she has two races of aliens who contributed to her DNA. I can't even begin to even start research on that. Maybe one day I will. Are they working together to form another species? I don't know. I'm trying to focus on the point here, but of course my mind went there. Cynthia also alleges that her father admitted to her that she was basically an experiment for the extraterrestrials and this hybrid program that they started in order to save their respective races. He allegedly told her she was put into her mother's womb from a petri dish. This is reportedly the reason she was abducted numerous times as a child, and she also believes that this is the reason they studied her so closely and took her with them so often. Cynthia also reports being taken away numerous times by, quote, the government, end quote, to what she claims was a, quote, top secret facility, end quote, where they performed all kinds of extremely invasive medical tests. She says the aliens mainly just wanted to keep track of her progress and how she was doing on top of performing these experiments on her. She said of all of this, quote, I came from a government experiment. My father told me about it. He had operated with the government in Korea and experimented with alien devices found in their crashed ships. My mom was drugged as part of a program and impregnated with me. For that reason, my DNA is only 34% human, and I've got porous bones, which are typical of my alien family. There are many races: Zuma Zeta, Tall White Zeta, and Blue Arcturian. I love them all. I channel their energies into my sculptures, end quote. Crawford became very well known and somewhat famous for her statues, her sculptures, and she also talked openly and was very public talking at numerous UFO conferences about her beliefs and experiences. Unfortunately, she died of a brain tumor in 2017. I've read that because she passed away, this means her allegations can never be proven one way or another. I don't really understand this. I mean, DNA existed and was actually quite advanced in 2017, which was just a few years ago. So why was it nothing ever tested before she died, or even since, in her blood to make these results public? That I don't know. Maybe I didn't come across them yet. Again, I'm still researching, and that wasn't really something I was looking for, but I wanted to see some kind of verification of what she was saying. If she died, they have her blood. If they have her blood, they have DNA. Or is the top secret government who started this whole thing with the aliens, you know, covering it up and making sure that nobody is able to actually prove the existence of the program or the alien DNA in certain humans? I don't know. I mean, that sounds a little bit reasonable to me, though. There's another kind of similar tale of someone claiming to be a hybrid. He was born Tommy Coleman Jr. in Florida, but was adopted, and his adopted family changed his name to Eddie Page. His entire life was full of very strange experiences and not so coincidences. In his youth, he started seeing a, quote, boomerang-shaped UFO, end quote. This continued well into his teen years, and he eventually would enlist in the United States Marine Corps. In 1972, he was sent to fight in the Vietnam War, right in the heart of Vietnam, and his assignment, according to him, was to assassinate the Vietnam premier. Eddie was part of what he referred to as a, quote, special elite and secret service group, end quote. Page claims at one point he was overcome by the enemy somehow and blacked out. When he awoke, he says he was standing in the middle of a huge rice paddy and wearing a fresh, clean green uniform, but he was disarmed. None of his weapons were on him or near him. From what he thought was a few minutes later, after he had been knocked out and woken up in the rice paddy, he said he was almost immediately captured by the United States military forces, which landed helicopters to, quote, capture and interrogate, end quote, him. It turns out after he was knocked unconscious, they claimed he was actually gone for 11 days, and the field he woke up in was 500 miles away from where he last remembered being with his unit. He says he was absolutely shocked at this information because he thought he had been knocked out and within a couple of minutes woke up in this field. This was obviously not the case. So he was being interrogated and said that the military eventually told him he had, quote, unusual organs and an anomalous blood type, end quote. He even goes so far as to claim that his military records are stamped with, quote, not of human origin, end quote. Eventually he was released and left alone to live a completely civilian life, but says he was never given any kind of explanation as to why he was in the rice paddy, how he had ended up there, what exactly they were talking about his not being human, essentially. All of the bizarre stuff, I guess, that he was just supposed to and expected to forget about. They never explained anything to him, like who knocked him out. At least not at first, because years later, after understandably being haunted by those uncovered events and memories, he finally underwent hypnotic regression to try and remember what had happened during those 11 days he had lost while in Vietnam. This is when things get really strange. He says he found out that his mission had failed. He was the only survivor out of his whole entire unit, and this was only because before he could die, he was allegedly abducted by the Pleiadian aliens. They had acted very, very quickly to kind of protect their investment or to save him that day because he was facing sure death. He was going to die with his unit. He claims they went through the trouble because he was unknowingly at the time, of course, a part of their hybrid program. This hybrid program, though, according to Eddie Page, was being conducted with the full cooperation of the United States military and government. He says he eventually learned he was one of 32 clones, 21 females, and 11 males who were part of this experiment with the Pleiadians and between the Pleiadians and the military of the United States. He also claims that from the time he was discharged from the military to current day, he was repeatedly and continuously harassed by unknown and unidentified government agents. Just a light bulb thought here, could this have been the Men in Black? Eddie claims to have the medical records from his time in the military, which allegedly have that stamp on it declaring that he is not of human origin, but I couldn't even find one single other person on the internet to corroborate this information. Admittedly, when I do these shorter videos, I do little more than kind of a cursory investigation, so I could just be missing it. And all of it does kind of combine to lead up to a bigger video, a bigger revelation, if you will, later on. This is just the beginning of my research into this. In 2016, a group of women came forward in the UFO community claiming to be the mothers of the hybrid children in these programs, some of them. A woman named Bridget Nielsen and another named Aluna Verse both claimed to have been abducted by aliens and forced to conceive hybrid babies as part of a top secret government hybrid program. Bridget claims to have mothered 10 of these babies herself. The women claim that these hybrid children are left to live aboard massive motherships with their alien fathers, but they are in frequent contact with them. Allegedly, there are tens of thousands of other women who are mothers in this program but aren't even aware of it yet. The whole process happens in a dreamlike state, and ideally, for the aliens at least, it's better if the humans don't ever realize it's real. However, sometimes, many times, and actually most times, the women do eventually, after time, realize it, and that's when the contact from the hybrid child starts. That's when they start being able to go aboard the ship and knowingly visit with their own hybrid children. Even when the women are still unaware, whoever is running these programs still wants the mother and child to have a bond, even if it is formed when the mother thinks she's dreaming and has no idea what's going on, apparently. The way I've heard it explained is that the aliens, or whoever is actually running the hybrid program with the aliens, whether it be some form of intergalactic government, our own government in America, as many have often accused, or some form of world government we don't even know about yet, etc. I don't know. They know how important it is for a child to bond with the mother and do everything they can to make that happen, again, even if the mother knows nothing about it except that she's having a super vivid dream or nightmare, depending on the experience. Both of the aforementioned women have claimed that the fathers of the children, respectively, are of the reptilian type of alien. They also claim that their children have, quote, reptilian features and big black eyes, end quote. Did anyone else think of the BEK the very second I said that about the eyes? I don't think a lot of the BEK reports have them having reptilian features, but the big black eyes, that's why I put so much emphasis in my conclusion and my theories about the BEK, that they are some type of hybrid child gone wrong, coming back to haunt the other parent. So there's another author named Jujuli Kuita who wrote a number of books, one specifically entitled, quote, We Are Among You Already, end quote. And she is a self-proclaimed alien hybrid. When being interviewed by a reporter at a UFO conference, she said, quote, My planet is Farqui and the Andromeda Galaxy. Since birth, I've known I was from another place. I felt isolated and different, that this wasn't my home. I am half reptilian and can shapeshift into another species called Fajan. It's scary when it happens in public, although other people don't necessarily notice because it happens at a higher frequency than humans can see, end quote. One of the articles I read made a very good point here, and how easy it is to say how convenient, or to laugh and say these people are crazy or insane. But I say this, even if it isn't true, and my mental jury is still out on that one, but even if it's not, right? If they feel it's real, then who are we to judge them? In watching these interviews and listening to these people speak, I can tell that regardless of what the actual truth is, they believe it. And I say that's awesome. Everyone needs something to believe in, and while I personally don't believe in every single one of these alleged encounters, I believe in a lot of them. It's all got to come from somewhere, right? Many of these people came to the realization that they were members of this hybrid program or at the very least different than most people having something to do with abductions or abductees or whatever, without ever knowing about anyone else's story, without knowing that other people have come forward and claimed to be hybrids. Those stories, like the ones I've mentioned so far above, simply skirt the periphery of the experts in the UFO field. They've attracted much closer attention by others involved in the field, like us perhaps, or the hybrids themselves searching for someone like-minded and perhaps like-blooded. What I'm trying to say here is that maybe these so-called experts don't know it all, and maybe the people who are out there searching for truth have the right idea. I don't know. So as most of you probably know already, or at least have imagined, there are so many different types of alien species and races because of the infinite amount of planets, galaxies, you know, all of that. I want to talk about one more alleged encounter, which I believe is very true. In 1994 in Zimbabwe, there were over 60 children playing in the yard at recess at their school, and every single one of them reported seeing a large craft with multiple smaller crafts following behind it. They all landed together, all of these crafts, in a nearby field as the children watched in awe. When reporting what they saw, the children also stated that they saw beings which they described as, quote, not human, end quote. I mention this story in particular because it has been well documented, well researched, and is considered one of the few reported stories which is considered to be true. That is, the experts who have studied it and the people who have researched it all believe that very likely this incident, whatever it was, alien or not, right, is absolutely 100% fact. It is known as a true event. The amount of witnesses, I think, plays a role in their opinions, though, and one of these experts is Harvard University psychologist Dr. John Mack. He personally interviewed each and every one of these children. He wasn't the only one to do this, of course, but this was a big deal. He's a big deal in the UFO community. This sighting in Zimbabwe got worldwide attention at the time, and here's what Dr. Mack said of his interviews with the children. Quote, yes, it's both. It's both literally and figuratively happening to a degree. It's also some kind of psychological, spiritual experience occurring and originating perhaps in another dimension. And so the phenomenon stretches us, or it asks to stretch us open to the realities that are not simply the literal physical world, but to extend to the possibility that there are probably other unseen realities from which our consciousness, our, if you will, learning processes over the past 100 years have closed us off, end quote. Can I just say I have literally no idea what that even means? I have to go through it again because I understood the end of it there, but what he's basically saying is it so beyond the scope of our brains and imagination to think that something like this could actually happen? Or do we need to chalk everything like this up to hysterical, witnessing or whatever? Anyways, to finish up here, I just want to say there have been literally hundreds, if not thousands, of supposed encounters with virtually no rational or reasonable explanation. I say virtually because even when there is an explanation, many people who don't believe in this, they in turn don't believe in the encounter without proof, which as we know it is almost impossible to get. Let me know what you all think in the comments. I'll have another one of these up for you guys soon, and maybe we'll talk about the different species and the different possible reasonings for why they need a hybrid program. I know my thoughts about why the Greys need one, definitely. Guys, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if you liked hanging out with me, and if you want to see more videos like this. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and share the love. Share this video. Thank you so much for coming and sitting with me and discussing all of this stuff today. I get really excited when I get to talk about things like the Alien Hybrid program because it's all new to me, researching things like this. I usually stick with true crime. I'm delving more into the paranormal. If you want to see more of me, please be sure to check out the description box. Steve Stockton and I host a show called Real Evil on Dezombified's channel every Wednesday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we talk about real evil. A link to that will be in the description box, along with links to our Friday night Campfire Tales on Missing Persons and Mysteries channel, which is from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And Sunday nights, we do Fireside Chat from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time as well, where we just discuss what's next, what's going on, perhaps in the paranormal and true crime community. We really talk about whatever we want, whatever you want, and everybody just talks together. It's like one big, as Steve and I like to call it in jest, dysfunctional family. Also, check out the description box. There you can find a link to my PayPal to make a one-time donation and still get access to the early releases of videos and eventual Patreon content for the month that you donate and possibly down the line, and the link for my Patreon to click and become a patron to get special videos, early access, special emails for me, more information, on what's going on with me and things kind of like that to make a recurring monthly donation. But however you can help, I would really appreciate it. PayPal, Patreon, Fireside Chat, Campfire Tales, and Dezombified, Surreal Evil, all in the description box. I love you guys so much. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything and can gain you so much. Have your best day. Have your best night. Go in grace. I love you guys. Bye-bye.